This is the Big MJ Debate, the show that discusses the most exciting, divisive, controversial, and hilarious goings on within the Michael Jackson fan community, and also gives you a first class seat to MJ events and hotspots around the world. I'm Pez Jax, and with this week's co hosts, we are not the world, but we are the UK. She's got the fire of Cyndi Lauper, the patience of Ray Charles, and the drinking capacity of Al Jarreau. It's Sean McLachlan. And she has the quiet presence of Harry Belafonte, the determination of Bruce Springsteen, and the calming influence of Lionel Richie. It's our special guest host, Connie McLachlan. The arrival of a new documentary on Netflix has got us feeling nostalgic for the 80s while re-examining what it means to be a music legend. The Greatest Night in Pop tells the story of the making of We Are the World through first-hand accounts, archived clips, and never-before-seen footage. As Michael Jackson wrote the song with Lionel Richie, we were keen to watch the documentary and find out more about the song, which has sold over 20 million copies worldwide. So last night, we settled in to watch The Greatest Night in Pop. And yes, we did. Wasn't it great?
I was blown away. Blown away. Firstly, actually, I think we've probably lost half the audience anyway because they've tuned in and thought, oh my God, there's two of them.
I was going to make some sarky intro about like, no, you're not seeing double. And then I thought, no, they are different.
No, but yeah, we watched it last night. We laughed, we cried, there was lots of emotions, but honestly, just so blown away by it.
Yeah, I was very, very pleasantly surprised by it all. I was honestly just so happy by the outcome. It was not what I was expecting, but that is actually a good thing.
So you mentioned not what you was expecting. I guess before we dive into what we loved and what we loved, we should probably take a little step back because often with Michael documentaries, we've been, apprehensive about what might be included, and we've been a little bit scarred by the whole experience of MJ documentary. So I just want to get a kind of idea of what was your preconceived notions about this documentary when you initially heard about it and before we got to see it.
Well, I was worried that maybe Michael would be done a disservice. I think we've spoken before about there's a sort of subtle erasure going on of Michael's contribution, Michael's legacy. And the first thing I was worried about when I heard there was going to be a We Are the World documentary was that he would be watered down. So I think, as you say, when you first hear Michael's going to be included in a documentary, your hackles go up and you're like, oh no. But you're nervous and you think, oh God, but really did not expect what we saw.
Yeah, I was expecting him to be briefly mentioned maybe, and then it just kind of be swept under the rug about just how much he contributed to it. And I thought, like, media have a very bad habit of picking and choosing, but I think they actually did such a good job about explaining how much involvement he actually did have.
Yeah, there's always that worry, isn't there, that when it comes to Michael, people are scared to either mention Michael, as we've seen in the last few years, noting Pepsi and Wembley Stadium as two offenders of that. But there is always that thing that people aren't going to mention him, or they're going to try and sidestep his contribution to still make a documentary, but kind of keep him in the background. And that was a fear of mine as well, that I thought, okay, he's not in it. He's not here to tell his side. But as you both say, I was pleasantly surprised. And so leading into that, where do we even begin? I mean, there was so much content to go through. There was so much storytelling.
Well, let's begin at the beginning because that's the first thing I thought. when it first opens up and it goes to Lionel Richie's voice and he says, the way it starts, he says, nothing will be the same after tonight. Nothing will be the same. And I thought that is such a good way to open something, because you immediately think, right, I'm going to see something that's going to change my view. And it really did. I learned so much that I didn't know. I thought the storytelling was amazing. It really showcased each artist individually and how much of an influence they had at the time. And I love the storytelling aspect. I love the interaction between all these superstars. I just thought it was so fabulous.
Yeah, I think when they were showcasing all these artists and they showcased Michael specifically, and they didn't tone down anything, they really actually celebrated how well he was doing at the time. And one of the artists, I can't remember exactly who it was, that were involved, they said anything Michael touched at the time turned to gold. And I think that was just such a good way to put it. Like, people were influenced to do this because of Michael. It wasn't just, oh, might see what it's like. No, it was Michael was doing it. We want to do it too.
Unless you're
That
Cyndi Lauper, because apparently she was like, nah, I don't know.
but that's an influencer, by the way, in case you're watching the state.
Oh gosh.
I agree. I think it was really, I loved the kind of build up, and I loved the kind of piecing together of the choir. I'm going to call them the choir because they were like a choir. The piecing together and how they had the discussions, like, is it Cyndi or Madonna?
Ah, and
who,
how
who who would you have picked if you had the choice? Would you pick Cyndi or Madonna?
I would choose Madonna. I feel like that's a no-brainer. Come on.
Yeah, Madonna.
Oh, don't you even start. Surely you're not going to say.
Well, I love Madonna, obviously, and
Yeah, this is why I'm like confused right now.
I do you know why I think I'm hesitant? Because I don't know that song any other way. And to me,
Yeah.
I know Cindy's part, and Cindy's part is iconic, and I can't imagine Cindy's
Oh,
part not being in it. So to imagine Madonna like, yeah, 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 yeah. I
no, no,
can't
no, no.
hear it.
Don't get me wrong. Cindy is iconic. I love her, but I just feel like, well, maybe see, it's very, very easy to look at this in hindsight, because I'm thinking Cyndi Lauper's a big name, but Madonna's a huge name. So I'm thinking now, but maybe at the time, Cindy
Yes.
was. Do you know what I mean? Maybe she was a better choice at the time, but you're totally right, and I'm not hating on Cindy. Love her, but I was surprised.
I loved how they sort of built up the story and were having the pictures, and Tina came in, and Bruce Springsteen came in, and Bob Dylan came in. Um, and then obviously the initial idea that Michael didn't want to be in it. He just wanted to write the song. Uh, I thought was really kind of, and that just shows who Michael was as a person and his intent, because I think sometimes it's misconstrued that when Michael did something, particularly a charity endeavor, it was always for self-gratification, which we as fans know not to be true, but too many people like to take credit or take things away from him, especially in the last few years. So I think to know that he was like, no, no, I'll write it, but I'm out, was really
it's
kind of telling.
it's unbelievable actually to think that he thought that him being in the song singing and also in a video would be overexposure on his part. He was very happy to take a back seat. And to think what the song would have been without him, can't imagine.
No.
It doesn't seem right. Like, when you think about it, I can't think of anyone else who is in the song that could have done it the way he did. Thankfully, we
Yeah.
never need to worry about that. But
um, but when they put together the choir, and then Tom Baylor, who wrote "She's Out of My Life" as well, when he explained how he chose who was going to do what parts, I was like, I didn't realize how much thought went into that. I really thought it was right. Who's popular? Oh, we'll just get Kim Carnes to sing that bit and Huey Lewis to sing that bit, and I'm forgetting names now. Paul Simon to sing that bit, but the way that he said, like, I was thinking, well, your range goes up here, and you will work with this one, and you'll follow really well with that one because that one's got a low tone and you've got a high tone. I was like, wow. And then when I listened to it again today before this recording, I heard it in a whole different light because now I knew that people were in place for a reason of how their voices sounded. And I was like, okay, this makes this song even better.
It was also really interesting to see that they actually recorded all their solo lines in a circle, all watching each other. And they were all very nervous about doing that, which is so interesting to see, but also really wholesome to think that they were thinking, oh my God, they're watching me and I'm a fan of them. And am I being weird right now? Or can I just not get it? Or it was so interesting to watch people kind of play about with their lines. And then we saw that they had a technical issue with Cindy's line. And I just thought how really quite sweet that they're all standing kind of, I think there was it Bob Dylan? And he was just really struggling to get his part. And Stevie Wonder jumped in and helped him. And then when they had finally got it, everyone was like, "Yay, go Bob Dylan!" It was just it had such a wholesome vibe between them all.
I actually ended up feeling really sorry for them because I don't think any of us kind of realised how long they were actually standing about waiting on. And there was a lot of troubles like at the very start when they were first recording. And I was thinking, if I was the last one singing, the last one with a solo line, I'd be thinking, hurry up.
It was actually really interesting to learn that the line that Huey Lewis sings, they originally had Prince in mind for that, and they were kind of waiting until the last moment, hoping he would show up. And we have a really funny moment where Michael is almost showing Huey how he would like it to be sung, and Michael looks at him as if like, okay. I don't know if you clocked it, but it was hilarious.
So let's talk about that Prince involvement. I mean, from a starting point, as I said about Cindy with Madonna, I can't imagine Prince in that role. That's Huey Lewis to me. But I mean, how iconic would it have been to have photographs and video footage of Michael and Prince literally next to each other at the microphone? It's not lost on me either that Michael was going to go first and Prince was going to sing the follow-up line. It's like, I see you, MJ.
I think it is disappointing that Prince wasn't there, but I actually really appreciated Sheila E.'s honesty when she said she felt that she was being used because they knew that Prince loved her a lot and he would hopefully turn up if she was there. And I felt quite sorry for her when she said that because I thought, oh, that's a shame. She felt that way.
Yeah, I think justice for Sheila E. That's my new justice for Sheila. I felt really bad for her, but I think obviously having Prince on it would have been amazing, but it is hard to imagine it any other way. But he had his other plans. That's fine.
I think there's a great moment in the documentary where you don't see the footage, but you catch a conversation happening between Quincy and somebody else. And Quincy says, Prince wants to record a guitar solo, but there is no guitar in this song, so that's not going to happen. Which is interesting because it kind of it puts another dimension to it because Lionel's sort of telling the story like we're all waiting and hoping with intrigue and excitement, and then you hear Quincy say, "Well, there's no guitar in the song, so we don't need it."
Yeah, it's like we're not going to make the space for him.
Yeah, and fair enough. If everyone else has turned up there and made personal concessions to be there, then Bruce Springsteen just came off a tour and flew in all night to be there. So it's each their own. But yeah, I mean, it would have been amazing sort of visually, but never mind. We
I
move on.
love Prince, but he chose his pettiness that night, I think, over the cause.
I also quite liked the backstory that Lionel told about Michael and him writing the song together, particularly and firstly the fact that Michael kept calling Lionel Lionel. That's just so That's just, I howled with that. That's out of the Michael Jackson playbook of pronunciation. Lionel. That's I remember when Wendy Williams said she met Michael once. And you know when you people go, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm sure you did." And when she went, he said, "Wendy, it's so lovely to meet you." And I was like, "She met him. She met
Yeah,
him." I know. So
100%.
so I loved those kind of backstories that Lionel brought because they're things we didn't know about the snake going missing, the bird and the dog arguing in the kitchen. I mean, it sounds like something out of a cartoon, but I just thought they were great stories. I really enjoyed sort of hearing more about that moment.
It was amazing actually, and I had no idea that when Michael and Lionel sat down to write the song, they were actually unaware that more people would be on it. They didn't think they were going to be um writing the song for however many voices ended up on it. They actually realized after they had written it that it was going to be a collaboration between so many people.
I think that's good though, because it goes to show when he first joined it, he wasn't like, oh, this is gonna look great, like all of these stars and me. Like obviously he was the top name that was gonna come out of it, but it just goes to show he wasn't in it for any more publicity as well, along with the fact that he didn't want to be in it in the first place. So I think that actually came across really well for him as well.
Yeah, I think it was nice to get that insight. And I am interested in the conversation around the writing process because since the documentary came out, some fans have obviously shared online Michael's Mexican deposition from '93, where he talks about the writing and recording of the demo for We Are the World. So things that match up between Michael's account and Lionel's account. I wonder if it was like Lionel Richie or if we're just going with Lionel. Because you can't really be like Lionel Richie. Um,
Rocher.
um, so Lionel says Michael came up with the line, "We are the world," which we'll take that. Michael and Lionel both say that I'm going to keep calling him Lionel
We're
now.
gonna
That's
roll
it.
with it.
Both parties have said that Lionel came up with the initial chorus melody, and then Michael says he took it away and recorded basically the whole song. But they didn't really touch upon that. They just sort of said, "Oh, it has a humming track," and they played a little clip of Michael's a cappella demo. So I don't know, but it's not quite clear, and that didn't come across in the documentary who was responsible for what exactly.
No, it didn't, but I'm also wondering if maybe Michael is referring to the solo clips that we got of him and he kind of was singing the whole song. Um, that was obviously in the studio before everybody came, but he was singing the whole song and they were playing about with recording and which I loved. I loved those clips and seeing Thriller era Michael, like he is top of his game right now. He just oozes cool. He looked amazing. That had me in tears just listening to him sing on his own.
Yeah, I think it was just amazing to see all this footage that, has been there. We're waiting on it. This is what we need. And you can see Michael and he's just like he's laughing. He looks like he's actually having a nice time, which is really good to see. It's positive ways that he's portrayed that we really are desperate to see.
Mhm.
100%. And when you take that footage of Michael, Lionel, and Stevie recording the demo together in the studio. So obviously Michael went and did his demo, which we know he did. We have it on Ultimate Collection. And then the three of them were recording that demo. That's footage I've not seen, and I just adored it. Seeing it really made me emotional just to hear him so effortlessly sing that. And then obviously they cut to Michael recording his parts in the studio when everybody else is at the American Music Awards. And just the powerhouse of that man's voice to be stood halfway back from the mic. And later on, I think Quincy or Lionel says to somebody singing, "If you stand too far back, we won't pick up your vocal." And I turned to Seb and said, "But that's not true for Michael because literally in the footage before, he's halfway back and the power coming out of that
Yeah.
voice." I think the lighting guy was the one who said, I was setting up the lighting and he just started singing. It's the best voice I've ever heard. I was like, thank you to all those people that go, oh, he was just a dancer. Thank you, you.
But that makes me, honestly, that just makes my heart burst, because hearing that man, I wonder how many people he sat with in his life and told him that story. And it's people like that who are so important in these documentaries, that their accounts, their first-hand accounts of people who were literally volunteering to be there. It was just incredible.
Not that they all knew that. Because that guy
Not
that
that they
went to
knew,
produce it, that guy that went to produce an invoice at the end, and they were like, no one's being paid. And he's like, oh, okay.
And he was like, oh, well, I got the t-shirt.
If you were there for all those hours, though, you'd be thinking, and then find out at the end it was volunteer, you'd be pure. Love it.
You'd be going around like scooping up. Right, Lionel wiped his head on this towel. Bob Dylan touched this stand. I mean, like, so we kind of been through the early part, and then American Music Awards happens, and everybody arrives for the recording. It definitely looked chaos. I don't know if that was the intention to make it look chaotic, but it felt chaotic as a viewer. Even there were times where I was like, guys, shut up. We're about to record. Why am I talking? Bette Midler, be quiet. It kind of felt like that.
Sorry, I literally turned to Connie and I said, I'm stressed and I'm not even in this room. And they were talking about the heat rising and everybody's getting fed up, and I thought, I can't take this.
I think to just see that, and also I think from a Michael Jackson fan perspective, to see him integrated like that was really nice to witness, just because we know with Michael that he often was not a part of those big kind of music industry circles, particularly in the later years. He didn't want to be. And you would seldom see him in a room with like loads of his peers. I really liked that, and like to see him hugging like Kim Carnes and other people there. I just wish he had the opportunity or felt comfortable enough to do that more in his life, and to feel embraced by his kind of music industry peers.
Which is so nice, isn't it? Because we've talked about before how people don't really humanize Michael, and in that setting, it seemed like he was just another musician, and everybody was there and they all got it. And to see him almost just interact with friends is something we don't get to see very often. And it's nice to know that even on that night, he felt like it was just another part of the group and not like the spotlight's on him.
Yeah, I think it was so nice to see as well, because even in the We Are the World music video, and you see Michael and he's standing at a microphone by himself, he's not got partners beside him, he's the only one there. So then seeing these bits behind the scenes where you see him get to interact with other people, it was actually so nice.
So I think one of my favorite parts in the documentary was when Bob Geldof came in to talk about why they were recording the song, and he mentioned about what they'd done in London with Band Aid and sort of tried to humble the room before they recorded. The camera finds Michael in the crowd and then just zooms right in on his face. And you can see on his face just how emotional he is about that story and how centered and grounded he's become in that moment. And for me, that was just, it gave me chills, because to see him so vulnerable and so touched by it, that's just the MJ we know. Do you know what I mean? Like, as fans, that's the MJ we've come to understand and seen through footage and personal accounts, and the public don't necessarily get to see that side of him. And so for me, that was a really poignant moment.
Yeah, I loved that. I think I was so happy that it was included, but it really goes to show that he's really thinking about what's being said. It's not just like, oh, it's cute that we're here, let's brush this off and just get this show on the road. He's really thinking about, okay, we need to have this cause in mind at all times. And he's just so speaks to him as a person, that moment.
It was just such a genuine moment that they managed to pluck him out. Like, obviously there were cameras about, everyone knew that they were being filmed, but in that moment he wasn't caring. He was just really thinking, like, this is why we're doing this, let's get to it. It was just so nice to see.
And the other moment I really loved was when Smokey Robinson said, Michael went up the front and said, because that's what we're giving, when they did Shala Shalinge, and then they said, because that's what we're giving. And Smokey's like, but what are we giving? That doesn't make any sense. And then they cut away to Smokey saying, I wasn't afraid to tell Michael Jackson that he was wrong, but he also kind of set that moment up by saying Michael Jackson is one of the greatest songwriters ever.
Mhm.
And I was like, thank you. We'll take that. There was just so much praise for Michael throughout, from his peers and from the footage that just spoke for itself. That this is why I think that even though it wasn't a Michael Jackson documentary, or, John Branca presents Michael Jackson in We Are the World, it really did him justice in this story, I think, anyway.
Oh, absolutely. It did him justice, and he really was given his flowers too, and nobody was watering down his contributions whatsoever. People were excited to have him there, and everyone was well aware of his talent. People were respectful, but he wasn't treated like an alien.
People were so open about how excited they were about him, how good he was. They weren't mentioning him and it being a throwaway comment. When they were talking about him and how great he was. And I think that's something that is so important for us to see, especially names that are still big today, still talking about how great he is. That's what we've wanted for such a long time.
Exactly. I loved the two people that I loved fangirling over Michael was one, Huey Lewis. He was proper raw and just was really in awe of Michael. And a personal favorite of mine, Kenny Loggins, when Kenny said, Michael called me up and said, I want you in this. And then he said, Michael came to me and said, who should we put in Prince's place? And Kenny suggested Huey Lewis. I loved that because I really like Kenny Loggins. I love his song, Who's Right, Who's Wrong, that Michael featured on. And so I love that. And then they had Kenny Loggins in it talking. And I really enjoyed seeing that.
I mean, it would have been great in some other world to have Michael and Lionel sitting together and joking with each other and saying, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember that? But also, we didn't need Michael there for everyone to be singing his praises, which is honestly a rarity for us, because I said this to you right after we watched it, Piz. I said to you, how amazing is it to watch something and not have to run to his defense?
Absolutely. And that's it, isn't it? We've had since 2019, it's been a constant. I mean, it's always been a constant, but recently, particularly where documentaries are concerned or footage is concerned. And I just want to point out that this documentary by Bao Nguyen premiered at Sundance. And if you think of what was also premiered at Sundance in 2019, the fact that all this time later, 4 years later, a positive documentary with Michael included is featured at Sundance and people are singing his praises. It shows how far we've come. It shows that we have turned a corner. And I'm so thankful to the team that put this together, because not only to learn all the things we learned in the backstory, but also for that positive moment that I feel like so many of us needed to feel like things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, what an amazing job that Bowen did with the whole production. I just thought that I honestly haven't enjoyed a documentary like that in so long. And it it included Michael perfectly without it being about Michael. And I didn't feel, I know that some people have said on Twitter they felt like maybe it was a bit biased and that it really kind of credited Lionel more than Michael, but I didn't feel that way. I felt that it was a great balance, and I think had they made it all about Michael, that would have also been wrong.
Yeah, I think going into it and you see it and you think, right, okay, it's 1 hour 40 long, and I thought, God, if there's any part of this that could be cut, but throughout it all, I was just hooked. I was so excited, and even like I was getting nervous. I was thinking, my God, are they going to do it? And it was so good, but still portraying them in such a good light. And it wasn't, you know, Michael's role wasn't diminished, and I think that was the main thing that everyone was kind of worried about.
You asked the question, are they going to do it? Connie, I'm delighted to tell you here and now, they did it! It sold 20 million copies worldwide! Now that we've watched it and we've had some time to digest the documentary, are there any kind of post-documentary reflections that you have or thoughts, particularly just about the We Are the World concept in general, the music industry, the people that were there, just everything kind of encapsulated into one?
I really will definitely say I have a newfound appreciation for the song. I had never thought before, as you said earlier, Pez, about how they really had to think about who was going to sing which lines, and there was some sort of order to that, and thought had went into it. I had no idea it was all done in one night, and I really do have a newfound appreciation for all the artists bringing their own unique styles. I think something that the documentary showcased very well was when you were hearing everyone's raw vocal, everyone sounded powerful. Everyone sounded powerful. But you can't help but wonder today if artists do have that same commitment to sitting in a room all night after an award show where they could be going out partying and getting up to all sorts. No, let's go and record for a cause, and we'll all sit in together, even if we don't particularly like each other and there's a competition going on between such and such. You do wonder if artists today have that same drive and dedication. I mean, these are real superstars giving up their award show night to come and do this.
Yeah, I think it was also just so interesting to look behind the scenes and see them putting together these names, and it wasn't just a thoughtless process of, oh well, they're big, let's get them in. No, it was, we need people from different genres so that we get the pool of everyone together. Like they had obviously Michael Jackson, Bruce Springsteen, Huey Lewis, Cyndi Lauper. They had to get something for everyone, and I think that obviously contributed to the fact, and then get as on top of that, getting to see them all interact with each other. I think it was amazing. The arrangement of the vocals was something that had never crossed my mind, and it just makes you think, oh, maybe it's more than just thrown together with who's there, who have we got, and it was something so much bigger than they even knew at the time.
I think even Dionne Warwick said, wait, you've got me singing with Willie Nelson. How's that going to work? And it does. It does. It works so well. I think the point you touched on about whether today's artists could do it. I watched today We Are the World 25, which was the one that was done on the 25th anniversary of We Are the World, obviously. And I thought, even watching that group there, I don't think that could be done today, because even members of that group are different with their attitudes and their egos, and it couldn't be done the same way. I think the music industry as a whole and many people in it have so much ego and so much need for social media attention and likes and all the rest of it, that I don't think that could be done A, in secret, and B, with everybody being cool about who was going to sing what and who was going to harmonize with who, which is why it was important to have Leave Your Ego at the Door in the original.
And I think it would be really difficult as well to try and do something like that now, because like Pez had said about, you know, we've already seen what it can do for people for exposure. So people would just be jumping on it, not for the cause. They'd be doing it because they think this will get my name out there. They're not going to be thinking about it. And I think that's what was so special about the first one, is they really didn't know how it was going to do. Obviously, they had these big names, but they were like, is it going to do well? But now they know it will, so they'll be jumping at it even if it's not good.
And how amazing that most of the artists in that room have now went on to become legacy artists. I mean, it's nearly 40 years after this was recorded, and you're sitting watching it going, oh my God, they're them, and them, and them, and them. Like, it still is amazing to see that 40 years on.
Yeah, and Diana Ross kicking off the autographs with Daryl Hall. I thought, that's just amazing. If I was him, I would be thinking, what have I done to deserve this?
But do you not think now, though, artists have this, like, they're too prideful to do things like that? You'd never hear that, I feel like.
Yeah. And it could be said, and I'm coining this, that Diana Ross started a chain reaction.
Oh, brilliant.
It literally came to me as Connie was speaking. I was like, that's going in.
And they thought, wait until they hear this one.
You're gonna love it.
I think a couple of the moments that really got to me, like really hit me in the chest, was obviously Michael singing and recording the demo. The moment where they said this premiered around the world at the same time, and they had the shot of people all around the world, news reporters, and then the satellite in space, and everybody hearing it collectively at the same time. That really hit me because that was "We Are the World." That was literally it in a moment. And perhaps the bit that literally sent me into a sobbing mess was the very end. Lionel Richie said, can't remember the exact wording, but he said something along the lines of, "My dad once said about one day you'll leave the house and you won't go back." He said, and the house will still be there, but the people in it won't be here anymore. And then it cuts to Lionel sat in the, I'm getting chills thinking about it. It cuts to Lionel sitting in the studio, and he was like, Michael Jackson was stood there. This Cyndi Lauper was stood there. This one was stood there. This is my home. These people were a family. And oh, it just sent me into a mess. And then the credits roll with "In Loving Memory of," and it's like name, Michael Jackson, Eldro, Harry Belafonte, Tina Turner. And I was just like, God.
And we're tearing up even talking about
it. But that really struck a chord with me, that moment, I think. And it finished the documentary perfectly.
Yeah, I honestly, I couldn't think of a better way to end it. I was kind of also thinking, oh, I don't want Michael to be forgotten at the end. And I was hoping that there would be some sort of tribute, because Lionel and Michael were obviously this powerhouse duo at the time. And I thought, oh, now Lionel's sitting here on his own. So I was so glad that they included that. And I thought it was such a touching sentiment.
I think it just really goes to show that that can never be recreated. That is something that's going to live on, and people will still look on and think, wow, that was incredible that they managed to pull that off somehow. And now you can see how. And I think it's just amazing.
And of course, just because I'm looking at my mug now, I've got a Disney mug, and it says, "There's a snake in my boot." It reminded me of the snake moment. So the fact that Lionel said they were recording at Michael's house and some albums fell down, and Michael's like, "Oh, there's my snake." And I was like, "Get me out of here." I love, like, that's such an MJ moment again.
That's what I was going to say. Like, isn't it so funny that all of these people have such similar stories about things like this? And it's as if, like, oh, I lost him, but he's back now.
And it was the music that brought him out. He loves music. He just wanted to say hi, wanted to join in.
Something that I thought was just incredible that we didn't realise was, in the original cut of We Are the World, they were playing about with the idea Stevie Wonder suggested of including some verses in Swahili, or even just a line in Swahili. And they eventually decided not to go with it. But in the We Are the World 25th anniversary in 2010, we actually had that. Wycliffe Jean recorded as a line in it, which was in Haitian Creole. Obviously, that version was for Haiti, so that made total sense. But what a full circle moment that was actually bandied about in the first recording, and then 25 years later, they thought, no, we're going to go with that idea this time.
If you had to rate the documentary out of 10 and give a personal recommendation, what would it be?
I'm giving it a 10. I am giving us a 10. And personal recommendation, I would say if you're into pop culture, this is the top pop culture moment to be watching. It's something that I think a fan of any of the people, if you're a fan of anyone that was involved in this, you'll enjoy it. And to be honest, even if you didn't even know what the song was before now, or didn't have an interest in the creative process, I think give it a go. Like it's literally pop culture history. I'm into anything pop culture, so I would watch it.
I would also give it a 10. I laughed, I cried, I felt the story along with them. It was so
Funny, you went so Scottish there.
I would honestly, I'm gonna tell all my friends to watch it, because even if you're not a super fan of anyone who's in it, it's still such an interesting watch. And if you are a fan of anyone else who's in it, there's something for everyone. That's what they wanted to achieve from years ago. They're still going to achieve with the documentary, with having all these different people in it and getting the stories from different perspectives. I just think it's so good. Finally, a win.
I would also give it a 10 out of 10, no question. Surprise.
We all agree on something.
What? This is the big MJ agreement.
I came for the debate.
10s across the board. I would definitely give it a 10 out of 10. And I would say to people, friends of mine who are, might not be familiar with this documentary or even the song, if you want to understand the music business, if you want to understand what it means to be a legend and why we call people legends, if you want to see what putting your differences aside and your egos aside and coming together for a better cause, watch this documentary. Also, if you love music, watch the documentary, because it is a music lovers documentary, and also an MJ lovers documentary, but mostly a music lovers documentary. There's a person for everybody in that room.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, if you're a Tina Turner fan, or you are a Kenny Rogers fan, or a Dan Aykroyd fan, there's something for everybody. And that is what I think makes it so unique. Just on a separate and purely selfish point, Bao, please release the poster. I want that poster in my house. And I don't know who's sort of taken over Ken Cragen's affairs, but can we please have a reissue of the USA for Africa white sweatshirt? Because I've wanted it forever, and now watching that documentary, I want it even more.
Yes.
So whoever's responsible, please. And a great charity initiative would be to reissue that the apparel and have people buy it for charity. So please, if you're watching, which I hope you are, please get that done.
Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know your thoughts on the documentary. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe, because I've been told my future of the channel depends on it. Thank you. Bye.
No, but we're serious.